Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Jai.
Jai Shri Gonitai ki jai, Shri Prabhupada ki jai.
Jai Garanga ki Sayam Vishnupada Paramahamsa Paravacharya Saraswata Shishiman's Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada.
Prabhupada ki jai. Gaur Premanande Hari Hari Om.
Haribo.
Shiva.
Krishna. Sankirtan Yagna Ki Jai.
Ki jai.
So it's what are we doing with the chanting? Was that it? Or do you have something you wanted to share? Maybe a song or something?
Man, I was looking today to a song of Surdas. It's a short song. If you don't mind, I will try to sing it.
Oh no, lovely, please.
It's called Surdas called Sabse Uchi Prem Sagai. It means of all forms of worship of the Lord, love is the best. And so it's called, I'm going to try. सबसे ऊंची प्रेम सगाई, सबसे ऊंची प्रेम सगाई, दुर्योधन को मेवा त्यागो, दुर्योधन को मेवा त्यागो, साग विदुर घर पाई, सबसे ऊंची प्रेम सगाई, सबसे ऊंची प्रेम सगाई, झूठे फल सबरी के खाए, झूठे फल सबरी के खाए, बहुविधि प्रेम लगाई, सबसे ऊंची ऊंची प्रेम सगाई, सबसे ऊंची प्रेम सगाई। प्रेम के बस नृप सेवा कीनी, प्रेम के बस नृप सेवा कीनी, आप बने हरि नाई, सबसे ऊंची प्रेम सगाई, सबसे ऊंची प्रेम सगाई। राजसूय यज्ञ युधिष्ठिर कीन्हो, राजसूय यज्ञ युधिष्ठिर कीन्हो, तामय जूता उठाई, सबसे ऊंची प्रेम सगाई, सबसे ऊंची प्रेम सगाई। प्रेम के बस अर्जुन रथ हाक्यो, प्रेम के बस अर्जुन रथ हाक्यो, भूल गए ठकुराई, ये सबसे ऊंची प्रेम सगाई, सबसे ऊंची प्रेम सगाई। ऐसे प्रीति बढ़ी वृंदावन, ऐसी प्रीति बढ़ी वृंदावन, गोपिन नाच नचाई, सबसे ऊंची प्रेम सगाई, सबसे ऊंची प्रेम सगाई। हरे कृष्णा हरे कृष्णा, कृष्णा कृष्णा हरे हरे, हरे रामा हरे रामा, रामा रामा हरे हरे, हरे कृष्णा हरे कृष्णा, कृष्णा कृष्णा हरे हरे, हरे रामा हरे रामा, रामा रामा हरे हरे। This song is called Sabse Uchi Prem Sagai, and the writer is Surdas. The language is Braj Bhasha. The translation goes like this. The refrain is translated: of all forms of worship of the Lord, love is the best. Sabse Unchi Prem Sagai. Lord Krishna renounced the delicacies that that Duryodhan offered and ate vegetables at Vidura's house. As Lord Ramchandra, he ate fruits which were already filled with love from Sabari. Love is indeed the best way to serve and please the Lord. In Maharaj Yudhishthir's Rajasuya Yajna sacrifice, Lord Krishna served the Brahmins and picked up their eating utensils. Out of pure love for Arjun, he took the position of being his charioteer, and he forgot that he was the Lord. Such love did Lord Krishna portray in Vrindavan when he danced with the gopis in the Ras Leela. Surdas asks, in what way could I worship the merciful and magnanimous Lord? Hare Krishna. Shall we read, Mataji?
Yeah. Yes. Hare Krishna. We're on
Chapter
Nectar,
3.
Chapter 3, Nectar Devotion.
Yes.
And says translated by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. And it's a summary study of Sri Rupa Goswami's Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. So chapter 3 is eligibility of the candidate for accepting devotional service. On account of his association with Mahatmas, or great souls, 100% in the devotional service of the Lord, one may attain a little bit of attraction for Sri Krishna. But at the same time, one may remain very much attached to fruitive activities and material sense enjoyment, and not be prepared to undergo the different types of renunciation. Such a person, if he has unflinching attraction to Krishna, becomes an eligible candidate for discharging devotional service. This attraction for Krishna consciousness in association with pure devotees is the sign of great fortune. It is confirmed by Lord Chaitanya that only the fortunate persons, by the mercy of both a bona fide spiritual master and Krishna, will get the seed of devotional service. In this connection, Lord Krishna says in Srimad Bhagavatam, 11th canto, 20th chapter, verse 8, quote, "My dear Arjuna, only by exceptional fortune does someone become attracted to me, Krishna. And even if one is not completely detached from fruitive activities or is not completely attached to devotional service, such service is quickly effective." End quote. Devotees can be divided into 3 classes. The first, or uppermost class, is described as follows. One is very expert in the study of relevant scriptures, and he is also expert in putting forward arguments in terms of those scriptures. He can very nicely present conclusions with perfect discretion and can consider the ways of devotional service in a decisive way. He understands perfectly that the ultimate goal of life is to attain to the transcendental loving service of Krishna, and he knows that Krishna is the only object of worship and love. This first-class devotee is one who has strictly followed the rules and regulations under the training of a bona fide spiritual master and has sincerely obeyed him in accord with revealed scriptures. Thus, being fully trained to preach and become a spiritual master himself, he is considered first class. A first-class devotee never deviates from the principles of higher authority, and he attains firm faith in the scriptures by understanding with all reason and arguments. When we speak of arguments and reason, it means arguments and reason on the basis of revealed scriptures. The first-class devotee is not interested in dry speculative methods meant for wasting time. In other words, one who has attained a mature determination in the matter of devotional service can be accepted as a first-class devotee. The second-class devotee has been defined by the following symptoms. He is not very expert in arguing on the strength of revealed scripture, but he has firm faith in the objective. The purport of this description is that the second-class devotee has firm faith in the procedure of devotional service unto Krishna, but he may sometimes fail to offer arguments and decisions on the strength of revealed scripture to an opposing party. But at the same time, he is still undaunted within himself as to his decision that Krishna is the supreme object of worship. Excuse me. The neophyte or third-class devotee is one whose faith is not strong and at the same time does not recognize the decision of the revealed scripture. The neophyte's faith can be changed by someone else with strong arguments or by an opposite decision. Unlike the second-class devotee, who also cannot put forward arguments and evidences from the scripture, but who still has faith in the objective, the neophyte has no firm faith in the objective. Thus, he is called the neophyte devotee. Further classification of the neophyte devotee is made in the Bhagavad Gita. It is stated there that 4 classes of men, namely those who are distressed, those who are in need of money, those who are inquisitive, and those who are wise, begin devotional service and come to the Lord for relief in the matter of their respective self-satisfaction. They go into some place of worship and pray to God for mitigation of material distress, or for some economic development, or to satisfy their inquisitiveness. And a wise man who simply realizes the greatness of God is also counted among the neophytes. Such beginners can be elevated to the second class or first class platform if they associate with pure devotees. An example of a neophyte class is Maharaj Dhruva. He was in need of his father's kingdom and therefore engaged himself in devotional service to the Lord. Then, in the end, when he was completely purified by declining to accept any material benediction from the Lord. Similarly, Gajendra was distressed and prayed to Krishna for protection, after which he became a pure devotee. Similarly, Sanaka, Sanatana, Sananda, and Sanat Kumar were all in a category of wise, saintly persons, and they were also attracted by devotional service. A similar thing happened to the assemblage in Naimisharanya forest, headed by the sage Shaunaka. They were inquisitive and were always asking Sutta Goswami about Krishna. Thus, they achieved the association of a pure devotee and became pure devotees themselves. So that is the way of elevating oneself. In whatever condition one may be, if he is fortunate enough to associate with pure devotees, then very quickly he is elevated to the second class or first class platform. Would you like to read?
Yes. These 4 types of devotees have been described in the 7th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, and they have all been accepted as pious. Without becoming pious, no one can come to the devotional service. It is explained in the Bhagavad Gita that only one who has continually executed pious activities and whose sinful reactions in life have completely stopped can take to Krishna consciousness. Others cannot. The neophyte devotees are classified into 4 groups: the distressed, those in need of money, the inquisitive, and the wise, according to their gradations of pious activities. Without pious activities, if a man is in a distressed condition, he becomes an agnostic, communist, or something like that. Because he does not firmly believe in God, he thinks that he can adjust his distressed condition by totally disbelieving in him. Lord Krishna, however, has explained in the Gita that out of these 4 types of neophytes, the one who is wise is very dear to him, because a wise man, if he is attached to Krishna, is not seeking an exchange of material benefits. A wise man who becomes attached to Krishna does not want any return from him, neither in the form of relieving distress nor in gaining money. This means that from the very beginning, his basic principle of attachment to Krishna is more or less love. Furthermore, due to his wisdom and study of Shastras, scriptures, he can understand also that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. It is confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita that after many, many births, when one becomes actually wise, he surrenders unto Vasudeva, knowing perfectly well that Krishna, Vasudeva, is the origin and cause of all causes. Therefore, he sticks to the lotus feet of Krishna and gradually develops love for him. Although such a wise man is very dear to Krishna, the others are also accepted as very magnanimous, because even though they are distressed or in need of money, They have come to Krishna for satisfaction. Thus they are accepted as liberal, broad-minded Mahatmas. Without being elevated to the position of a jnani or wise man, no one can stick to the principle of worshipping the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Others who are less intelligent, or those whose intelligence has been taken away by the smell of Maya, are attached to different demigods on account of the influence of the modes of nature. The wise man is he who has thoroughly understood that he is spirit soul and not simply a body. Because he realizes that he is spirit and that Krishna is the supreme spirit, he knows that his intimate relationship should be with Krishna, not with this body. The distressed and the man in want of money are in the material concept of life because distress and need of money are both in relationship with this body. One who is inquisitive may be a little above the distressed and the man in need of money, but still he is on the material platform. But the wise man who seeks Krishna knows perfectly well that he is spirit soul or Brahman and Krishna is the supreme spirit soul or Param Brahman. He knows that the spirit soul, being subordinate infinite, should always dovetail himself with the infinite and supreme soul Krishna. That is the relationship of the wise man with Krishna. It can be concluded that a person who is freed from the bodily concept of life is an eligible candidate for pure devotional service. It is also confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita that after Brahman realization, when one is freed from the material anxieties and can see every living entity on an equal level, he is eligible to enter into devotional service. As has been stated before, there are three kinds of happiness: material, spiritual, and devotional. Devotional service and the happiness due to its execution are not possible so long as one is materially affected. If one has desire for material enjoyment or for becoming one with the Supreme, these are both considered material concepts. Because the impersonalists cannot appreciate the spiritual happiness of association and the exchange of loving affairs with the Supreme Personality of Godhead, their ultimate goal is to become one with the Lord. This concept is simply an extension of the material idea. In the material world, everyone is trying to be topmost headman amongst all his fellow men or neighbors, either communally, socially, or nationally. Everyone is competing to be greater than all others in the material concept of life. This greatness can be extended to the unlimited so that one actually wants to become one with the greatest of all, the Supreme Lord. This is also a material concept, although maybe a little more advanced. However, the perfect spiritual concept of life is complete knowledge of one's constitutional position, and thus one knows enough to dovetail himself in the transcendental loving service to the Lord. One must know that he is finite and that the Lord is infinite. Thus, it is not possible to actually become one with the Lord, even if one aspires for this. It is simply not possible. Therefore, anyone who has any desire or aspiration for satisfying his senses by becoming more and more important, either in the material sense or in the spiritual sense, cannot actually relish the really sweet taste of devotional service. Srila Rupa Goswami has therefore compared possessing this bhukti, material, and mukti, liberation, desires, with being influenced by the black art of a witch. In both cases, one is in trouble. Bhukti means material enjoyment, and mukti means to become freed from material anxiety and to become one with the Lord. These desires are compared to being haunted by ghosts and witches. Because while these aspirations for material enjoyment or spiritual oneness with the Supreme remain, no one can relish the actual transcendental taste of devotional service. A pure devotee never cares for liberation. Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu prayed to Krishna, quote, "My dear son of Nanda, I do not want any material happiness in the shape of many followers, nor immense opulence in wealth, nor any beautiful wife, nor do I want cessation from material existence. I may take birth many times, one after another, but what I pray from you is that my devotion unto you may always remain unflinching." End quote. The attention of a pure devotee is so much attracted to glorification of the pastimes, name, qualities, forms, etc. of the Lord that the devotee does not care for mukti. Sri Bilwa Mangal Thakur has said, quote, "If I am engaged in devotional service unto you, my dear Lord, then very easily can I perceive your presence everywhere. And as far as liberation is concerned, I think liberation stands at my door with folded hands waiting to serve me." End quote. To pure devotees, therefore, liberation and spiritual emancipation are not very important things. In this connection, in the third canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, chapter 25, verse 23, Kapil Dev has advised his mother Devahuti as follows, quote, "My dear mother, my pure devotees are charmed by seeing my different forms. The beauty of my face, the structure of my body, so enchanting. My laughing, my pastimes, and my glance appear to them so beautiful that their minds are always absorbed in thoughts of me, and their lives are dedicated fully unto me. Although such people Although such people do not desire any kind of liberation or any kind of material happiness, still I give them a place amongst my associates in the supreme abode." End of the quote. This evidence from Srimad Bhagavatam gives assurance to the pure devotee of being elevated to association with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Srila Rupa Goswami remarks in this connection that one who is actually attracted by the beauty of the lotus feet of Sri Krishna or his service, and whose heart by such attraction is always full with transcendental bliss, will naturally never aspire after the liberation which is so valuable to the impersonalists. A similar passage is also there in the third canto, 15th chapter of the same book, wherein Uddhava addresses Lord Krishna and says, quote, "My dear Lord, for persons who are engaged in your transcendental loving service, there is nothing worth obtaining from religiousness, economic development, sense gratification, or liberation. Although happiness from these different sources can be very easily had by them. In spite of such facilities, my dear Lord, I do not aspire to achieve any such results. My only prayer is that I may have unflinching faith and devotion unto your lotus feet." End quote. A similar passage appears in the third canto, 25th chapter, 31st verse, wherein Kapila instructs his mother and says, quote, "My dear mother, devotees whose hearts are always filled in the service of my lotus feet and who are prepared to do anything for my satisfaction, especially those who assemble together to understand my qualities, pastimes, and form, and thus glorify me congregationally and derive transcendental pleasure therefrom, Such fortunate devotees never desire to become one with me, and not to speak of becoming one with me. If they are offered a post like mine in my abode, or opulence like mine, or even personal association with me with similar bodily features, they refuse to accept because they are satisfied simply by being engaged in my devotional service. End of the quote. In the Srimad Bhagavatam, 4th canto, 9th chapter, 10th verse, King Dhruva says, quote, My dear Lord, the transcendental pleasure derived by meditation upon your lotus feet, which is enjoyed by the pure devotees, cannot be approached by the transcendental pleasure derived by the impersonalists through self realization. So, how can the fruitive workers, what most can aspire to promotion to the higher heavenly planets, understand you? And how can they be described as enjoying a happiness similar to the devotees' happiness? End of the quote and end of the chapter. Hare Krishna. So wonderful. The glories of devotional service. I cannot hear you, Mata.
Oh, yeah. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
What should we do?
Read one more chapter.
Okay, talk me into it. Okay.
Okay. You start.
Okay. This is chapter 4. Devotional service surpasses all liberation. How much a devotee is seriously attached to the devotional service of the Supreme Personality of Godhead can be understood from the statement of Maharaj Prithu, Adiraj, which is described in Srimad Bhagavatam, 4th canto, 20th chapter, 21st verse. He prays to the Supreme Personality of Godhead thusly, quote, My dear Lord, if, after taking liberation, I have no chance of hearing the glories of your Lordship, glories chanted by pure devotees from the core of their hearts in praise of your lotus feet, and if I have no chance for this honey of transcendental bliss, then I shall never ask for liberation or this so-called spiritual emancipation. I shall simply always pray unto your Lordship that you may give me millions of tongues and millions of ears so that I can constantly chant and hear of your transcendental glories. End quote. The impersonalists desire to merge into the existence of the Supreme, but without keeping their individuality, they have no chance of hearing and chanting the glories of the Supreme Lord. Because they have no idea of the transcendental form of the Supreme Lord, there is no chance of their chanting and hearing of his transcendental activities. In other words, unless one is already beyond liberation, one cannot relish the transcendental glories of the Lord, nor can one understand the transcendental form of the Lord. A similar statement is found in the Srimad Bhagavatam, 5th canto, 14th chapter, 43rd verse. Sukadev Goswami addresses Parikshit Maharaj there and says, quote, The great soul, King Bharat, was so much attached to the service of the lotus feet of Krishna that he very easily gave up his lordship over the earthly planet and his affection for his children, society, friends, royal opulence, and beautiful wife. He was so very lucky that the goddess of fortune was pleased to offer him all kinds of material concessions, but he never accepted any of these material opulences. End quote. Sukadeva Goswami eulogizes this behavior of King Bharat very highly. He says, quote, any person whose heart is attracted by the transcendental qualities of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Madhusudana, not to speak of material opulences, does not care even for that liberation which is aspired to by many great sages. End quote. In the Bhagavatam, 6th canto, 11th chapter, 23rd verse, there is a similar statement by Vritrashura, who addresses the Lord as follows, quote, my dear Lord, by leaving your transcendental service, I may be promoted to the planet called Dhruvaloka, the pole star, or I may gain lordship over all the planetary systems of the universe. But I do not aspire to this. Nor do I wish the mystic perfections of yoga practice, nor do I aspire to spiritual emancipation. All I wish for, my Lord, is your association and transcendental service eternally. End quote. This statement is confirmed by Lord Shiva in the Srimad Bhagavatam, 6th canto, 17th chapter, 52nd verse, wherein Lord Shiva addresses Sati thusly, quote, my dear Sati, persons who are devoted to Narayan, Krishna, are not afraid of anything. If they are elevated to the higher planetary systems, or if they get liberation from material contamination, or if they are pushed down to the hellish condition of life, or in fact in any situation whatever, they're not afraid of anything, simply because they have taken shelter of the lotus feet of Narayan. For them, any position in the material world is as good as another. End quote. There is a similar statement by Indra, the king of heaven, in Srimad Bhagavatam, 6th canto, 18th chapter, 52nd verse. There, Indra addresses his mother in this manner, quote, my dear mother Aditi, persons who have given up all kinds of desire and are simply engaged in devotional service to the Lord know what is actually their self-interest. Such persons are actually serving their self-interest and are considered first-class experts in the matter of advancing to the perfectional stage of life. In the 7th canto of the Bhagavatam, 6th chapter, 23rd verse, Maharaj Prahlad says, quote, my dear friends who are born into atheistic families, if you can please the Supreme Personality of Godhead Krishna, then there is nothing more rare in this world. In other words, if the Supreme Lord Krishna is pleased with you, then any desire that you may have within the core of your heart can be fulfilled without any doubt. As such, what is the use of elevating yourself by the results of fruitive activities, which are automatically achieved in all events by the modes of material nature? And what is the use for you of spiritual emancipation or liberation from material bondage? If you are always engaged in chanting the glories of the Supreme Lord and always relishing the nectar of the lotus feet of the Lord, then there is no necessity for any of these. End quote. By this statement of Prahlad Maharaj, it is clearly understood that one who takes pleasure in chanting and hearing the transcendental glories of the Lord has already surpassed all kinds of material benedictions, including the results of pious fruitive activities, sacrifices, and even liberation from material bondage. Similarly, in the same 7th canto, 8th chapter, 39th verse, when the demigods are offering prayers to Lord Nrsimha, Indra, the king of heaven, says, quote, O Supreme One, these demons talk of our share of participation in the performances of ritualistic sacrifices. But simply by your appearance as Lord Nrsimhadev, you have saved us from terrible fears. Actually, our shares in the sacrificial performances are due to you only, because you are the supreme enjoyer of all sacrifices. You are the supersoul of every living entity, and therefore you are the actual owner of everything. Long were our hearts always filled with fear of this demon, Hiranyakashipu. But you are so kind towards us that by killing him, you have removed that fear from within our hearts and have given us the chance to place your lordship within our hearts again. For persons who are engaged in the transcendental loving service of your lordship, all the opulences which were taken away from us by the demons are counted as nothing. Devotees do not care even for liberation, not to speak of these material opulences. Actually, we are not enjoyers of the fruits of sacrifices. Our only duty is to always be engaged in your service, for you are the enjoyer of everything. The purport of this statement by Indra is that, beginning from Brahma down to the insignificant ant, no living entities are meant for enjoying the material opulences. They are simply meant for offering everything to the Supreme Proprietor, the personality of Godhead. By doing so, they automatically enjoy the benefit. The example can be cited again of the different parts of the body collecting foodstuffs and cooking them so that ultimately a meal may be offered to the stomach. After it has gone to the stomach, all the parts of the body equally enjoy the benefits of the meal. So, similarly, everyone's duty is to satisfy the Supreme Lord, and then automatically everyone will become satisfied. A similar verse is found in the 8th canto, 3rd chapter of Srimad Bhagavatam, verse 20. Gajendra says there, quote, "My dear Lord, I have no experience in the transcendental bliss derived from your devotional service. So therefore, I have asked from you some favor. But I know that persons who are pure devotees and have, by serving the lotus feet of great souls, become freed from all material desires, are always merged in the ocean of transcendental bliss, and as such are always satisfied simply by glorifying your auspicious characteristics. For them, there is nothing else to aspire to or pray for." Would you like to read?
Okay, Mataji.
Thank you.
In the 9th canto of the Bhagavatam, 4th chapter, 49th verse, the Lord of Vaikuntha replies to Durvasa Muni thusly, quote, "My pure devotees are always satisfied being engaged in devotional service, and therefore they do not aspire, even after the 5 liberated stages, which are 1. To be one with me, 2. To achieve residence on my planet, 3. To have my opulences, 4. To possess bodily features similar to mine, and 5. To gain personal association with me." So when they are not interested even in these liberated positions, you can know how little they care for material opulences of material liberation. End quote. There is a similar prayer by the Nagpadni, wives of the Kaliya serpent, in the 10th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, 16th chapter, 33rd verse. The Nagpadni stay there, quote, "Dear Lord, the dust of your lotus feet is very wonderful. Any person who is fortunate enough to achieve this does not care for heavenly planets, lordship over all the planetary systems, the mystic perfections of yoga, or even liberation from material existence. In other words, anyone who adores the dust of your lotus feet does not care a fig for all other perfectional stages." End quote. There is a similar statement in the 10th canto, 87th chapter, 17th verse, when the Shrutis, the Vedas personified, pray to the Lord as follows, quote, "My dear Lord, it is very difficult to understand spiritual knowledge. Your appearance here is just as you are, is to explain to us this most difficult subject of knowledge of the Spirit. As such, your devotees who have left their domestic comforts to associate with the liberated acharyas, teachers, are now fully merged in the devotional service of your Lordship, and thus they do not care for any so called liberation. End quote. In explaining this verse, it should be noted that spiritual knowledge means understanding the self and the supersoul or superself. The individual soul and the supersoul are qualitatively one, and therefore both of them are known as Brahman or spirit. But knowledge of Brahman is very difficult to understand. There are so many philosophers engaged in the matter of understanding the soul, but they are unable to make any tangible advancement. It is confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita that out of many millions of persons, only one may try to understand what is spiritual knowledge, and out of many such persons who are trying to understand, only one or a few may know what is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So, this verse says that spiritual knowledge is very difficult to achieve. And so, in order to make it more easily attainable, the Supreme Lord Himself comes in His original form as Sri Krishna and gives His instruction directly to an associate like Arjun, just so that people in general may take advantage of this spiritual knowledge. This verse also explains that liberation means having completely given up all the material comforts of life. Those who are impersonalists are satisfied by simply being liberated from the material circumstances. But those who are devotees can automatically give up material life and also enjoy the transcendental bliss of hearing and chanting the wonderful activities of Lord Krishna. In the 11th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, 20th chapter, 34th verse, Lord Krishna says to Uddhava as follows, quote, My dear Uddhava, the devotees who have completely taken shelter of my service are so steadfast in devotional service that they have no other desire. Even if they are offered the four kinds of spiritual opulences, they will refuse to accept them. So, what to speak of their desiring anything within this material world? End quote. Similarly, Lord Krishna says in another passage of the Bhagavatam, 11th canto, 14th chapter, 13th verse, My dear Uddhava, quote, My dear Uddhava, a person whose consciousness is completely absorbed in my thought and activities does not aspire even to occupy the post of Brahma, or the post of Indra, or the post of lordship over the planets, or the eight kinds of mystic perfections, or even liberation itself. End quote. In the 12th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, 10th chapter, verse 6, Lord Shiva says to Devi, quote, My dear Devi, this great Brahman sage Markandeya has attained unflinching faith and devotion unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and as such he does not aspire after any benedictions, including liberation from the material world. End quote. Similarly, there is a statement in Padma Puran describing the ritualistic function during the month of Kartik, October to November. During this month in Brindavan, it is the regulative principle to pray daily to Lord Krishna in his Damodar form. The Damodar form refers to Krishna in his childhood when he was tied up with rope by his mother Jashoda. Dam means rope and Udara means the abdomen. So Mother Yashoda, being very disturbed by naughty Krishna, bound him round the abdomen with a rope, and thus Krishna is named Damodar. During the month of Kartik, Damodar is prayed to as follows, quote, My dear Lord, you are the Lord of all, the giver of all benedictions. End quote. There are many demigods like Lord Brahma and Lord Shiva who sometimes offer benedictions to their respective devotees. For example, Ravan was blessed with many benedictions by Lord Shiva, and Hiranyakashipu was blessed by Lord Brahma. But even Lord Shiva and Lord Brahma depend upon the benedictions of Lord Krishna, and therefore Krishna is addressed as the Lord of all benefactors. As such, Lord Krishna can offer his devotees anything they want, but still the devotee's prayer continues, quote, I do not ask you for liberation or any material facility up to the point of liberation. What I want of what I want as your favor is that I may always think of your form as I see you now as Damodar. You are so beautiful and attractive that my mind does not want anything else besides this wonderful form. End quote. In this same prayer, there is another passage in which it is said, quote, my dear Lord Damodar, once when you were playing as a naughty boy in the house of Nanda Maharaj, you broke the box containing yogurt, and because of that, Mother Yashoda considered you an offender and tied you with rope to the household grinding mortar. At that time, you delivered two sons of Kubera, Nalkuver and Managriva, who were staying there as two Arjun trees in the yard of Nanda Maharaj. My only request is that by your merciful pastimes, you may similarly deliver me. End quote. The story behind this verse is that the two sons of Kuber, the treasurer of the demigods, were puffed up on account of the opulence of their father. And so once on a heavenly planet they were enjoying themselves in a lake with some naked damsels of heaven. At that time the great saint Narad Muni was passing on the road and was sorry to see the behavior of the sons of Kuber. Seeing Narad passing by, the damsels of heaven covered their bodies with cloth. But the two sons, being drunkards, did not have this decency. Narad became angry with their behavior and cursed them thusly, quote, you have no sense, so it is better if you become trees instead of the sons of Kuber. End quote. Upon hearing this, the boys came to their senses and begged Narad to be pardoned for their offenses. Narad then said, yes, you shall become trees, Arjun trees, and you will stand at the courtyard of Nanda Maharaj. But Krishna himself will appear in time as the foster son of Nanda, and he will deliver you. End quote. In other words, the curse of Narad was a benediction to the sons of Kuber, because indirectly it was foretold that they would be able to receive the favor of Lord Krishna. After that, Kuber's two sons stood as two big Arjun trees in the courtyard of Nanda Maharaj until Lord Damodar, in order to fulfill the desire of Narad, dragged the milling pestle to which he was tied and struck the two trees, violently causing them to fall down. From out of these fallen trees came Nalkuver and Manigreva, who had then become great devotees of the Lord. Here is a passage in the Hayasirsha Puran, which states, quote, my dear Lord, O Supreme Personality of Godhead, I do not want any resultant benediction from any religious life, nor do I want any economic development, nor do I want to enjoy sense gratification nor liberation. I simply pray to be an eternal servant at your lotus feet. Kindly oblige me and give me this benediction. End of quote. In the same Hayasirsha Puran, after Nrsingadev wanted to give benedictions to Prahlad Maharaj, Prahlad did not accept any material benediction and simply asked the favor of the Lord to remain his eternal devotee. In this connection, Prahlad Maharaj cited the example of Hanuman, the eternal servitor of Lord Ramchandra, who also set an example by never asking any material favor from the Lord. He always remained engaged in his service. That is the ideal character of Hanuman, for which he is still worshipped by all devotees. Prahlad Maharaj also offered his respectful obeisances unto Hanuman. There is a well-known verse spoken by Hanuman in which he says, quote, "My dear Lord, if you like, you can give me salvation from this material existence or the privilege of merging into your existence, but I do not wish any of these things. I do not want anything which diminishes my relationship with you as master and servant, even after liberation." End quote. In a similar passage in the Narad Pancharatra, it is stated, quote, "My dear Lord, I do not wish any perfectional stage by performing the ritualistic religious ceremonies or by economic development or by sense gratification or liberation. I simply pray that you grant me the favor of keeping me under your lotus feet. I do not wish any kind of liberation, such as Salukya, to reside on your planet, or Sarupya, to have the same bodily features as you. I simply pray for your favor that I may be always engaged in your loving service." End quote. Similarly, in the 6th canto, 14th chapter, 4th verse of Srimad Bhagavatam, Maharaj Parikshit inquires from Sukadev Goswami, quote, "My dear Brahman, I understand that the demon Vritrasur was a great sinful person and that his mentality was completely absorbed in the modes of passion and ignorance. How did he develop to such a perfectional stage of devotional service to Narayan? I've heard that even great persons who have undergone severe austerities and who are liberated with full knowledge must strive to become devotees of the Lord. It is understood that such persons are very rare and almost never to be seen, so I am astonished that Vritrasur has become such a devotee." End quote. In the above verse, the most important thing to be noted is that there may be many liberated persons who have merged into the existence of the impersonal Brahman, but the devotee of the Supreme Personality of Godhead Narayan is very, very rare. Even out of millions of liberated persons, only one is fortunate enough to become a devotee. In the Srimad Bhagavatam, first canto, 7th chapter, Queen Kunti is praying to Lord Krishna at the time of his departure. Quote, "My dear Krishna, you are so great that you are inconceivable even to great stalwart scholars and Paramahamsas, fully liberated souls. So if such great sages who are transcendental to all the reactions of material existence are unable to know you, then as far as we are concerned, belonging to the less intelligent women class, how is it possible for us to know your glories? How can we understand you?" End quote. In this verse, the particular thing to be noted is that the personality of Godhead is not understood by great liberated persons, but only by devotees such as Queen Kunti in her humbleness. Although she was a woman and considered less intelligent than a man, still she realized the glories of Krishna. That is the purport of this verse. Another passage which is very important is in the Srimad Bhagavatam, first canto, 6th chapter, 10th verse, and is called the Atmarama verse. In this Atmarama verse, it is stated that even those who are completely liberated from material contamination are attracted by the transcendental qualities of Lord Krishna. The purport of this verse is that the liberated soul has absolutely no desire at all for material enjoyment. He is wholly freed from all kinds of material desires, yet still he is irresistibly attracted by the desire to hear and understand the pastimes of the Lord. We may therefore conclude that the glories and pastimes of the Lord are not material. Otherwise, how could the liberated persons known as Atmarams be attracted by such pastimes? That is the important point in this verse. From the above statement, it is found that the devotee is not after any of the stages of liberation. There are 5 stages of liberation already explained as being to become one with the Lord, to live on the same planet of the Lord, to obtain the same bodily features as the Lord, to have the same opulences as the Lord, and to have constant association with the Lord. Out of these five liberated states, out of these 5 liberated stages, the one which is known as Sayujya, or to merge into the existence of the Lord, is the last to be accepted by a devotee. The other 4 liberations, although not desired by devotees, still are not against the devotional ideals. Some of the liberated persons who have achieved these 4 stages of liberation may also develop affection for Krishna and be promoted to Golok Vrindavan planet in the spiritual sky. In other words, those who are already promoted to the Vaikuntha planets and who possess the 4 kinds of liberation may also sometimes develop affection for Krishna and become promoted to Krishna Loka. So those who are in the 4 liberated states may still be going through different stages of existence. In the beginning, they may want the opulences of Krishna, but at the mature stage of dormant love of Krishna exhibited in Vrindavan becomes prominent in their hearts. As such, the pure devotees never accept the liberation of Sayujya to become one with the Supreme, though sometimes they may accept as favorable the other 4 liberated states. Out of many kinds of devotees of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the one who is attracted to the original form of the Lord, Krishna and Vrindavan, is considered to be the foremost, first-class devotee. Such a devotee is never attracted by the opulences of Vaikuntha, nor even of Dwarka, the royal city where Krishna ruled. The conclusion of Sri Rupa Goswami is that the devotees were attracted by the pastimes of the Lord in Gokul or Vrindavan are the topmost devotees. A devotee who is attached to a particular form of the Lord does not wish to change his devotion to any other forms. For example, Hanuman, the devotee of Lord Ramchandra, knew that there is no difference between Lord Ramchandra and Lord Narayan, and yet he still wanted to render service only unto Lord Ramchandra. That is due to the specific attraction of a particular devotee. There are many, many forms of the Lord, but Krishna is still the original form. Though all of the devotees of the different forms of the Lord are in the same category, still it is said that those who are devotees of Lord Krishna are the topmost in the list of all devotees. Thus ends the 4th chapter of the Nectar of Devotion called Devotional Service Surpasses All Liberation.
Jai.
Hare
Hare
Krishna.
Krishna. Yeah. Hare Krishna. Nice.
Beautiful.
Mm. Hare Krishna.
so many examples of how.
All personal. It's all personal. Lord Shiva talking to Sati, Gajendra offering prayers, all the different devotees, and how the Indra, Brahma, Vritrashura, and they're all saying the same thing.
Yes. Yes.
Just from their particular situation, they all have the same
Exactly.
conclusion. Yeah. The devotee doesn't care where they are in the material creation. That's, the pure devotee. As
If you can
long as
only
they can
serve,
serve Krishna.
only serve.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. So nice to read this. Actually, it gives desire to become a devotee. Because it's so glorious to be a devotee. When you read this, you desire to become a devotee.
Yeah. What is this devotee? Some unusual creature.
How is it that this Krishna gives so much credit to one who is a devotee? Yes.
The different types of devotees was discussed in the other chapter of
Yes.
first class, second class, and neophyte. Different levels of.
And to become a pure devotee is very, very rare. To become, without a tinge of material desire or liberation. And especially the Sayuji liberation is not wanted by devotees because there's no possibility of serving Krishna.
Because there's no form. There's
There's
no
no form.
pastime. There's no
Yes.
activities. So there's no service.
Yes. Nirakar.
Mm.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna,
Mm.
Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare.
Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare
Hearing is
Ram,
so
Ram
important.
Ram, Ram
Hearing
Hare
is so important. So important to hear these messages. So important. Hare Krishna. So the neophyte, they can be swayed easily because they haven't really taken full advantage of the scriptures. So they're attracted to Krishna and they may be engaging in service to Krishna, but the second class and first class devotees, they have full access to the scripture. The second class devotee is not so proficient. He can't really argue from the scripture, but he can't be swayed because he's familiar with the conclusion of the scriptures, and he
Right.
can't be, argued away. He won't accept any other arguments. He can't really defend his position very well, but he's situated in it. And the first class devotee can also defeat or present from scripture. But the neophyte's in an awkward position because he can be swayed. So he has to get to the second class platform.
Yes, because otherwise you're in danger.
Mm-hmm.
So long you don't come to the second platform, you're in danger to be,
It could be picked off.
Yes, you can. The doubts may overtake you because you're not fixed in your faith, and
Or some
because you
challenge.
lack knowledge.
Some challenge comes,
Yes,
some difficulty or,
it's like, and then people ask, "Where is your God?"
Yeah. You're on your question. Oh, is he here? Where is he?
Where is your God?
Show him to me. Prove
Show
it.
him to me. Yes. Or sometimes, difficult things happen. It's, things happen, and then devotees have hard times, and then people challenge. If you're such a big devotee, you're devotee. Why you go have to? Why your God is not taking care of you? So
Yeah, you're wasting your life. You're wasting your time.
yes,
You could be doing so many things, wasting
yes, you
such an
could have
opportunity
achieved
to
so much.
enjoy. Yeah, such an
Yes.
opportunity to enjoy.
What
Nobody
is
knows
this?
for sure if there's, anything after death.
Right.
Nobody know. The reason they say that is because they don't know.
Exactly.
Not that nobody knows. You don't.
Nobody knows.
The voice of ignorance is just spoken.
Yes.
Nobody knows.
Nobody knows. Okay.
Listen to me. I'm now your guru, and I say nobody knows.
Nobody knows.
Hmm.
Has anyone come back to tell you what it's like when you leave the body? What is this afterlife?
Hmm.
Going to Krishna. Has anyone come and told you they went to Krishna?
Hmm. You're all from the bodily platform, all from the
Exactly.
platform of what I can perceive through my limited senses. Yeah.
We cannot perceive.
All knowledge has to come through empirical study. I can't. The atheist, the materialist, they can't accept any knowledge any other way. They have to be able to put it in a test tube, cut it, weigh it, smell it, taste it, to
Exactly.
study it.
Empirical.
Yeah.
Yes, because they have. Yes, they cannot. They cannot imagine anything being beyond that.
Yeah, and like Prabhupada gave that example. He says, well, if someone's never been to China, but someone else has, and they come and they tell you all about what China is like, it doesn't mean
Right.
that China doesn't exist just because you haven't been there.
Right.
Yeah.
So the pure devotee comes from Vaikuntha and tells us, comes from Krishna Loka, describes it, and then those who have faith they accept, and those who are unfaithful, those who are fortunate, are blessed, I think, can grasp and accept, and those are unfortunate, they will keep doubting.
Mhm.
Hare Krishna,
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna
Krishna
Krishna.
Krishna, Hare Hare,
All
Hare
right,
Ram,
so
Hare
next
Ram, Ram
time
Ram,
is
Hare. So
chapter
this was yes,
5.
today's reading, chapter 5 next time. Yes,
Yeah. There's I think 56 chapters.
nectar devotion.
Yeah.
Yeah, this
Yeah.
51.
51 chapters?
According, yes, 51
Oh, okay.
chapters according
50
to this.
something. Yeah. Shy. All the
Yes,
way up through all the rasas with
yes,
examples and
yes.
illustrations and just,
There's
yeah.
so much there because we read to the preface, introduction, characteristics of pure devotional service, the first stages of devotion, eligibility of a candidate for accepting devotional service. This then devotional service surpasses all liberation. That is what we read today. And the next time will be purity of devotional service.
Mhm.
Then comes how to discharge devotional service, evidence regarding devotional principles, offenses to be avoided, further considerations of devotional service, techniques of hearing and memorizing, aspects of transcendental service, revealed scriptures, the Mahamantra, devotional qualities, spontaneous devotional service, varieties of love of Krishna, ecstatic love, character of one in ecstatic love, devotional service in love of God, transcendental mellow, qualities of Krishna further explained, Krishna's personality, further traits of Krishna, devotees of Krishna, stimulation of ecstatic love, symptoms of ecstatic love, other ecstatic symptoms, expressions of love for Krishna, further features of ecstatic love for Krishna, additional symptoms, symptoms of continuous ecstasy, conjugal affection, the nectar of devotion, neutral love of God, transcendental affection or servitude, impetuses for Krishna's service, indifference and separation, ways of meeting Krishna, referential devotion of sons and other subordinates, fraternal devotion, fraternal loving affairs, parenthood, devotional service in conjugal love, laughing in ecstasy. When you're doing Mataji, laughing ecstasy, astonishment and chivalry, compassion and anger, dread and ghastliness, mixing of rasas, further analysis of mixed rasas, and perverted expression of mellows. So that's the overview.
Oh,
So
that's
much to
great.
read. We're going chapter by chapter.
Very nice. Hare Krishna. Hare.
Jai Hare Krishna. So we end here today.
Yeah. Yeah. Very
Jai
nice.
Nectar of Devotion ki jai, Bhakti Sri Bhakti Ras Amrita Sindhu ki jai, Shila Prabhupada ki jai.
Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna
Krishna
Padaya.
Prasthaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Ti Namine.
Nam
Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvisesh Sunyavadi Paschat Deshatarine.
Jai Vanchikapatari.
Kripa Sindhu Cha Patitanam Pavane Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare.
Hare Bol.
Hare Bol. Till the next time.
Hare
Krishna.
the next miracle.
Yes. Yes, how we survive.